Originally, the Scandinavians lived relatively isolated from the rest of Europe. But by about 700 AD, they are part of a growing commercial trading network, powered by advances in ship technology.
Maritime technology is improving. Ships are getting faster, they can range further afield. Sails are really coming into common use. And that gives the people increased possibilities to head out into that wider world.
The Vikings set off in all directions, well beyond their territories. They were both traders and raiders.
Of course, the acquisition of wealth, stealing things, is one of the motivations for these expeditions. Alongside the Viking raiders, there are traders still going out there, exploring new markets, new transactions.
There are Scandinavians walking the streets of Istanbul and Baghdad. The Islamic traveler Ibn Fadlan describes some he encountered along their eastern trade routes as having bright red hair, like fire, tattoos, from tips of fingers to necks. The Vikings used the great rivers as highways to travel east, through today's Russia and beyond to Asia. They raid Europe to the south, and then they go west, first to the neighboring British Isles, and then on to Iceland and Greenland. The Vikings were able to travel such great distances thanks to their cutting-edge ship technology. One of the earliest surviving examples of a classic longship is from Oseberg in Norway. This vessel, with its elegant high bow and stern, dates to around 800 AD. Its rounded hull and shallow keel would allow it to land easily on a beach or riverbank, making any coast or inland waterway vulnerable to attack. But how were these longships made? At the Viking Ship Museum in Roskilde, Denmark, master boat builder Martin Rodevad Dale is using traditional materials and tools to construct a replica.
What are you working on here?
Right now, it's the backbone. It's the keel for a small Viking ship.
So what kind of wood is this? This oak?
Is oak, yeah. And the whole boat will be built out of oak.
Right. Look at this, what a piece. How old do you reckon this is?
I would think 200 years old.
This is going to become planks. How do you do that?
Actually, we'll split it in halves and quarters.
Splitting oak trunks into planks is tough work.
See.
Well, this is the line, I think.
Yeah, it's going.
That's going to work, isn't it?
The plank will still have to be smoothed and shaped.
That's right, yeah. That's perfect.
And fitted to the keel.
There we go. This brilliant plank.
So the next plank will come right here.
This overlapping design is known as clinker. It actually needs less waterproofing than fitted planks, making the boat lighter and faster. Most think of oak as strong, but it's also flexible.
Whoa.
It's pretty good.
That's amazing, eh? I weigh 100 kilos.
You get these amazingly strong planks, and you get the flexibility too.
It all helps to mold the ship into the classic Viking shape and makes the boat sturdy and flexible enough to withstand powerful wind and waves. And Martin wants to show Dan how it works.
So if you sort of move it, you can see. Really
Whoa!
See, you move. You can tell
Amazing.
How the whole thing is.
The whole thing's just twisting like this. You can just see the ripples going down the hull there.
These amazing longships are the engine of the Viking era. Their power helps create the myth of the Vikings as invincible maritime warriors. On board their longships, the Vikings travel far and wide in search of wealth. And soon, the Vikings are starting to wreak havoc up and down the coast of the unsuspecting British Isles. At the height of the Viking Age, most Norse are not literate. What little writing they do is in the runic alphabet, usually carved into wood, bone, or stone.
This is a culture that had a degree of literacy. They used runes, but they didn't have a book culture. They didn't have a communicated learning through writing.
Norse myths and histories alike are passed on verbally from generation to generation.
And they created these sagas partly in song and partly as oral tales, and were handed down, spoken down for a long time. And oral traditions generally migrate in terms of the story.
These oral traditions are finally written down in the 13th century by Christian monks in Iceland, a couple hundred years after their ancestors convert to Christianity. Written in the Old Norse language, these are not eyewitness accounts. They describe events that took place several centuries before, so they are not fully reliable. Still, they carry a wealth of information about the Viking world as it was 1,000 years ago.
So the sagas are wonderful. They're great epics, and they tell you a lot about the personalities and the times, and they tell you a lot about family life. They tell you about the sailing directions. They're a wonderful source of literature as well as knowledge about Viking culture and their history.
The sagas also describe the workings of the Viking government in Iceland. Dan Snow is meeting saga expert Emily Lethbridge at the site of Iceland's open-air Viking parliament, Thingvellir.
This is the site of the oldest parliament in the world.
They held their meetings in a remarkable geological location.
This is a natural fault line. We're on the point where the North American and the Eurasian tectonic plates meet.
You and I are standing in between Eurasia and North America at the moment.
We are 1 foot on 2 continents.
Isn't that amazing? The Vikings, who were the first Eurasians to explore North America, ended up having one of their parliaments on the actual divide between the two.
According to the sagas, each year in June, chieftains from across Iceland would gather here.
What kind of things would be discussed and debated at these parliaments?
Well, decisions about feuds or disputes between local parties that couldn't be settled at a local level would be resolved here. The laws would be amended or revised, new laws created. Sentences of outlawry would be imposed on members of society who had broken all of the rules.
You were sent away from Iceland.
You could go anywhere else, but you couldn't set foot on Iceland for the period that the outlawry stood.
It is this kind of exile from Iceland that launches perhaps the most astonishing chapter in Viking exploration. According to the sagas, around 982 AD, a local Icelandic court banishes a Viking explorer and entrepreneur named Eric the Red because he had murdered several people.
One of these characters in the sagas, who's said to have been outlawed for a period of 3 years, is Eric the Red.
Already banished from Norway and now exiled from Iceland, Eric set sail to uncharted waters. Outlaws for sure, but he and his crew are also intrepid explorers.
I think they were people who took chances and were prepared to undergo huge physical trials, such as sailing in open boats across the Atlantic, to see what they could find, not least for what could be exploited out there.
How did Vikings like Eric the Red manage to successfully navigate and survive long-distance voyages in the treacherous North Atlantic? To find out, Dan is on board a replica Viking ship, the Ottar. The legendary oars come out when there is no wind or the boat is close to shore. If there is a sniff of a breeze, they use the sail. But winching the sail up to the top of the mast requires strength and teamwork.
Fast. Fast.
Okay, go.
And now you can feel we're going downwind, so it's nice and smooth.
Not only is Greenland a Viking colony for 500 years, but according to the Sagas, it serves as a launching point for the most epic adventures of all. It starts when the son of Eric the Red, Leif Ericson, is blown off course in a storm in the seas west of Greenland.
Lætur Leifur í haf og lengi úti. He's at sea for quite a long time. Leifur sights new lands that he had no reason to know that these lands existed.
The Sagas describe in detail Leif's trip and the different landscapes he discovers along a mysterious new coastline. For years, archaeologists and historians speculated that this coastline was in North America, and they tried to match the Sagas' descriptions to the geography we see today.
Leifur, he's sailing south down along the coast, and he's describing the different landscapes. They sail past, first of all, a land that they call Hetluland, the land of stone slabs.
Hetluland seems to some experts to match what is now Canada's Baffin Island.
And then they come to a part of the country that's very heavily wooded, and they give the name Markland, or forested land, to that part of the country.
Markland could correspond to today's Labrador. Further south, according to the Sagas, Leif sends scouts ashore to explore the new land, and they bring wild grapevines back to the ship. So they name this place Vinland.
And they come back, one of them with a handful of self-sown wheat and the other with a vine in their hand.
Wild vines, is that where they get the name Vinland from?
That's one interpretation, yes, the land of wild grapes and vines.
Some experts thought that Vinland could be what is now Newfoundland and the coast around the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
So that's how, according to this saga, North America was discovered.
So this is hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus. Here it is, in this manuscript right here.
But no one knew for sure if the stories were true without archaeological evidence. All that changed in 1960, when after years of searching, archaeologists made a remarkable find at the northern tip of Newfoundland, in a place called Meadows. Sarah is on her way to Meadows to see the only confirmed Viking settlement in North America. She wants to find out what kinds of traces the Vikings left behind here, in the hope that she might discover new sites along the coastline. Approaching the site by boat, just as the Vikings would have, Sarah is struck by the sheer beauty of the place. As well as the extreme obstacles the Vikings faced.
I can't even imagine being a Viking in your boat, sailing by icebergs the size of a mountain. It gives you a sense of just how intrepid and brave they were, seeking new worlds.
Sarah wants to show what the team has discovered to Viking expert Doug Bolender. He's worked extensively on Norse sites in Iceland, but this is his first time in Newfoundland.
It's that weird mix of being extremely excited about the possibility and extremely skeptical about actually finding something that's going to change the way that we understand what the Norse are doing in North America. And, you know, you don't get that moment very often to walk out into a place that has the potential to change history.
This is what showed up. First we hit this rock. We didn't know that it was fire-cracked at first, just because it was so covered in muck.
With the fire-cracked rock, the layer of what appears to be ash, and other disturbed layers of soil, Doug thinks Sarah could be onto something.
These are the kinds of features that you often see for ironworking within Norse contexts. What I'm really curious about, is this it? Is this isolated feature?
Sarah points out on the satellite imagery where there are signs of possible walls.
It looks like there's another feature, if this is it, because it looks like there's an additional rectilinear feature on the interior.
Right.
I mean, and I wonder if that's our stone here, and that's our line of stones.
Doug helps to open up the trench a bit more. He has a lot of experience excavating Viking turf walls, which can be difficult to spot. Dan Snow has also joined the team to see what they've uncovered.
We opened this up specifically because the remote sensing imagery had suggested that between these two units, just to the edge of the stone, there should actually be a wall. We opened it up, and indeed, it looks like there is a great deal of structure. There's banding in the soil.
These bands, what are these black bands here?
Well, what this looks like is it looks like turf blocks that have been put and cut and placed here.
For Doug, the series of dark bands in the soil here closely resembles bands he's seen in Viking turf walls excavated in Iceland.
Someone's made a wall using turf.
That is what it looks like.
Who would do a thing like that?
Dun, dun, dun.
So you've dug turf walls all over the North Atlantic, right?
Lots of turf walls.
Lots of Viking turf walls. Do they look like this?
Well, actually, they look similar to this, and that is what we need to do a little bit more digging to figure out. Whatever it is you picked up on the remote sensing,
Yep.
you picked up something that's actually here.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm having a lot of trouble making it a geological anomaly.
Is this strong enough evidence to convince Doug that this is a true Viking site in North America? The first one discovered in over 50 years?
Right now, the simplest answer is that it looks like what it looks like, which would be a small activity area, maybe connected to a larger farm that's Norse. You sort of have to explain that away. And if we're in Iceland, I wouldn't think twice about what was happening here. The thing that really makes you pause, the thing that really makes you want to check every last little bit of it, is that it's in Newfoundland.
I am just thrilled having a Norse specialist here say that the turf wall that we found just in the area where the satellite images showed it should be was there, and he said it looks like Norse turf.
In order to be sure that the site is Viking, the team needs to run tests on the artifacts they've gathered. The samples found around the cracked rock will undergo analysis for metal composition to see if they really are slag, the remnants of Viking metalwork. And radiocarbon dating will be done on the seeds or berries that Sarah found in an effort to confirm that the site dates to the Viking period, 1,000 years ago. These are the first results to come back. Sarah and Dan are about to see them for the first time.
Hey, Dan.
Hey.
What's going on?
Just waiting, the waiting game. I'm feeling a little nervous. How are you doing?
I'm very nervous. Because, I mean, you know, it's funny, like, no matter if the dates are good, I'll be happy. You know, and if they're really off, there are more questions than answers.
Yeah, if they're bang on, it would be amazing. It'd just be really good to have the dates work out. That's good.
So are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
It's a lot more recent. Yeah, it says 1600s, 1800s, which makes no sense given what we have. I mean, there's no way that this is a modern site. You saw the conditions at that site, you know, that lots of mixing, lots of, you know, potential later intrusions, especially with the amount of water that was there. That berry, or those berries were not from a particularly strong context.
Yeah. So the seeds could have just drifted down through the layers over the years.
Yeah, or, you know, things could have been exposed. But the reality is those dates don't match the archaeology at all.